Hi folks, this is Donald. Today I'm having a go at sketching this mind-bogglingly cluttered and busy coffee shop in Seattle, USA. And the reason I'm doing this is to pay a little tribute to the Urban Sketchers movement, which is based in Seattle. And there is a good reason for that, which I'll talk about shortly. I'm also going to be trying out a new way of colouring my sketches with lots of really bold contrast and deep blacks once we get to the colouring stage. But first of all, I'm going to show you how I constructed the drawing from front to back. I know it's not that easy to see the photograph at that small size, but if you want to take a closer look, the link to the full-size photograph is in the description, or you might even want to have a go at trying to sketch this yourself. So when I approach a scene like this, I try to break it all down into lots of small bits and pieces. There's so much going on in the scene that if I try to process it as an entirety, it becomes overwhelming, it becomes far too much to try and figure out what I should be drawing and where. So I break it all down into little bits, take it step by step, and take as much time as is necessary. And with this sketch, it really was as much time as necessary. I got so carried away drawing all the little bits and pieces, all the cups, glasses, the pipes on the ceiling, the signage, that this ended up taking me 5 hours to complete. It's by far the longest I've ever spent on a sketch. So I started off with the plant, and then I drew the table thing that it was sitting on and all the other objects that I could see that were sitting on the table, like the travel mug and the little teapot type thing. I did make a mistake in the bottom. You might notice that in the insert of the table part, I drew the line all the way down to the bottom, and it's not supposed to be like that. But as always with mistakes, if I make them, I usually find a way to fix them, and later on you'll see that that mistake does disappear. I just draw in another little cup and it vanishes. So there's always a way to fix mistakes, and that's why I repeatedly say that if you make a mistake, don't stop, don't let it put you off, just keep on sketching and finish the sketch. You can judge it later. I always force myself to do that, no matter how much I want to stop, because it's amazing how many times I get to the end of a sketch and it turns out that the sketch is an awful lot better than I thought it was going to be. So yes, the reason that I wanted to sketch this and why I chose a coffee shop in Seattle is significant, because Seattle is where the Urban Sketchers movement is from. And at the time this video is going out, the tickets are about to go on sale for the annual Urban Sketchers Symposium, which is an annual gathering somewhere in the world of urban sketchers who get together to do sketches and workshops with some of the most talented and well-known urban sketchers. This year, the annual symposium is taking place in New Zealand, in Auckland, and tickets go on sale on the 12th of November. So if you fancy a trip to New Zealand to meet up with urban sketchers from all parts of the world and take part in what I'm sure will be some really fun workshops, just head over to urbansketchers.org and buy your tickets from the 12th. The early bird tickets were on sale and have sold out really fast, so if you're interested, don't hang about. I gather that these do sell out very quickly. I've never been to an Urban Sketchers Symposium myself, simply because I only discovered urban sketching during the pandemic. And if it wasn't for the pandemic, I probably would never have heard of urban sketching. Most people have never heard of urban sketching. Anytime I mention it to anyone, they go, "What's that?" So we are in a small and unique club of strange people who go about drawing the world, and what a fantastic opportunity it would be to go to New Zealand and get to meet other people with the same interests. And New Zealand is somewhere that I've always wanted to go. Unfortunately, I won't be able to be there this year, but hopefully in future I will be able to go to one of these symposiums. Since I can't go, I thought I would just do a little sketch in tribute. There are some very well-known urban sketchers that hail from Seattle, including Stephanie Bauer, Stephen Reddy, and Gabriel Campanario, who was the founder of the Urban Sketchers movement back in 2007. So really it's his fault that I'm here doing this now, and I must say I'm incredibly grateful that this hobby exists. If you've watched any of my videos in the past, you will probably know that I'm not an art person. I don't have an art background. I'd never drawn in my life before the pandemic. I discovered urban sketching and I just love it. I'm drawing all the time. It's like a complete new way of life for me, and I can't imagine a time in future where I won't be drawing and sketching. So I'm incredibly grateful for the fact that this organisation exists, because what I do feel like is that the Urban Sketchers movement has made art accessible to normal people. You don't have to have an art background to be an urban sketcher. You don't have to have trained or have done any art in your life. You can just pick up a pen and draw, and it doesn't matter if you're no good at it. There's no judgment. You can't be wrong, because we're all just learning together and we're trying to get better. And some urban sketchers do have an art background background and were professional artists before that. And I think that's great that there's such a mixture of different types of people, different ages. There's a huge age range in all of the Urban Sketchers groups. And on a related note, if you haven't visited my website, urbansketchy.com, on there I have written a not entirely serious backstory of how the Urban Sketchers movement came about. It's like an alternative history, shall we say, but with significantly more silliness and a lot less truth. So if you'd like to check that out, just for a little giggle, you head over to my website and click the link called Story. I really enjoyed doing this sketch. I don't normally do indoor scenes. This is the first time I've done one, in fact, and I did definitely get carried away with all the detail, but that's me, that's what I love doing. I think you can see why this took me so long, given the amount of detail I did put into it. I certainly got carried away with all the pipework and things going on in the ceiling, and the difficulty is that when you're constructing all of this, it's deciding when to place them into your sketch. Does this pipe go behind that pipe, or does it go in front of that pipe? Is there anything else crossing over it? Does that go in front of that? I just spend so much time staring at the scene, making calculations, working things out. And that's probably my favourite part of drawing. I say this all the time, but it's like a puzzle, and probably get the same satisfaction from working this out as you do from doing a jigsaw or a crossword. It's that sort of inner need to work something out. It's what I love about this. And apart from the amount of detail, one of the reasons I took so long on this sketch is that this is an A3 size pad, and up until now all I've ever done is sketch on A4 pads or smaller. And I found that a bit of a challenge as well, because I wasn't entirely sure if I was drawing things in the appropriate scale. It did help that I'd done a very quick pencil sketch beforehand, just to give me some idea of proportions, where things were going to go. But until I started drawing stuff, like the plant for example, I had no idea if that plant when I started was going to be too big, too small, or just about right. And in the end it did seem to be just about right, so that was lucky. But larger sketches are the way I want to go now, partly because I had some A4 pads that are now finished, and I have an A3 pad and an A2 pad that have been sitting about for ages and I've never really used them. So rather than go and buy new stuff, I'm sticking to my recent philosophy of using up what I already have. But I've really liked drawing bigger. This is going to sound silly, but it made me feel a little bit like, oh, I'm a grown-up artist now, I'm doing big sketches. And it's such a fun approach to doing this, just to have that childlike attitude as I'm going to spend 5 hours drawing a picture. That's what I'm going to do this evening. And I was also really happy with the perspective of the wall on the left side. As I was talking about in my last video, perspective was something I really struggled with early on, so I largely just ignored it. But now I'm at the stage where I've kind of got to grips with how it works. So you can see there on the top of the wall, it slants more steeply, and then as it gets towards the middle, it goes straighter, and then down the wall it's going up the way, and it's all to do with the eye line. I've seen a fair amount of stuff about perspective, and early on when I was drawing I just found it didn't really make a lot of sense to me. I've just got lost by it. But essentially, if all those lines on the left hand side continued on, they would eventually reach a point where they would join together, somewhere on the wall where all the coffee prices are. When the line drawing was complete and I'd drawn every single bottle, box, sign and drinks can, I decided that I would move on to colouring in. I felt like it needed contrast. I wanted in particular to bring forward the Order Here sign and the 3 big hanging lights so that I could distinguish that from the background. So I started putting down black. This is a Faber-Castell India ink marker, pure black. And the moment it went down, I thought, oh, that looks quite good. So as is so often the case when I'm sketching, I got carried away and I just kept going and going and going. I thought the plant pot looked fantastic in pure black. And then I started colouring in the travel mug and the little teapot. And I've got 2 pens. There was a thin one and a very thick one, a big chunky one. And I used the chunky one for larger areas like the big coffee machine on the right hand side, and then the smaller one for more detailed areas. I was so struck by how punchy it was making everything look, with just this really stark black and white. The majority of my sketches to date were a whole series of greys, so I was still doing a monochrome sketch. It was just that I was using all the different greys from light to dark grey. But always when I was colouring in the windows, turning off the lights, I would use the pure black. And I always thought it looked really striking. And it's something I've had in my mind for a while, that what if you used more of that in a scene? So finally I've been bold enough to take the risk and see what happens, what it looks like. And for me, I was loving this. I think this is quite exciting to find something that's still me, but quite dramatically different, and it's amazing how much it transforms the scene just by colouring in black. Back in my early days of sketching, when I was doing lots of experiments trying to figure out my style, I did do one scene that was highly contrasty black and white in this sort of fashion. If you've seen one of my old videos where I showed you the process that I went through to get to my sketching style, I was drawing a cinema over and over again, and in one of them I did it with a really high contrasty style like this. And I really liked it at the time, it just didn't feel like the right direction that I wanted to go at that moment. But now it's something I'm thinking, I want to explore this, I think there could be something there. I'm not sure at the moment how I would translate this into, say, street scenes, for example. But last week I did a scene of Venice, and I'm thinking anywhere that's got shadows, like for example under a bridge, to go really dark black, that seems like an option I could try. And of course there's windows, I can turn the lights off, and maybe other bits and pieces of street furniture that I could turn black. I just really like how contrasty it's making everything. Everything's kind of jumping out and popping. If I was going down this route, I think there would just be a lot of trial and error, trying to work things out. But that's exciting to me. That's what I love doing, is try new things, and sometimes it doesn't work and I decide I'm never going to do something like that again, or something does work and it gives me a little spark and I go, oh, I'm going in that direction now. And it's always why I keep changing my mind about the sort of thing I want to do, or at least explore for a little while, because I already have established a sketching style that I can go back to if I feel that this isn't working. So there's no reason not to go and explore and see what happens. And I also hope that it helps to see the development of someone's experiments and sketching in a way that might help and encourage you to not be fearful of trying things and not be fearful of getting things wrong. Because this could have been a disaster, and maybe it is a disaster, I don't know. It's very difficult for me to judge. I almost feel like I need someone to say, no, don't do this is terrible. But then we probably all feel like that. It's just something in us that we need someone to tell us the right direction to go in when we get a bit lost or confused. I felt like that was enough black to put in the scene, but one of the side effects of putting in all that black was that I lost some of the line detail that I'd spent so long drawing in. So I went and grabbed my white gel pen, it's a Signal white gel pen, and I jumped around some of the objects, just putting in some white lines where I'd lost them, and that just makes them whole objects again, rather than having a cup disappearing into a coffee machine or into another black object behind. Although as always with white gel pens, I find that they're a bit temperamental. Sometimes the line will be nice and smooth, and then you'll try the next line and it'll be scratchy and it feels like it's drying up and you're constantly having to wipe the nib. I might try and seek out a different type of white pen that's not too thick but will draw in the lines a little bit smoother. That's ideally what I would like. But I think I'll just explore a bit more with the black first before I go buying any more pens, because that's certainly something I'm trying to stop doing, is buying pens all the time. And I've done very well. I haven't bought any pens for weeks. It's saved me a fortune compared to my pen buying habit of olden days gone by. By this stage I'd hit the 5-hour mark and there was almost out of space to record in, so I turned off the camera, and after I'd finished recording I went in and added a few more little touches with white, mainly on the big coffee machine to bring out the curves of the machine, and then just a few other little details here and there to give it more definition and detail to the objects. And you'll also notice right at the bottom, you'll remember when I said that I'd made the mistake of drawing the line straight down to the bottom of the page, and then I drew in a little cup, so now it became a completely black cup. And that's a great advantage of using pure black ink, is if you make a mistake it's so easy to hide it. So that's the finished result. It's something completely new for me. I don't know exactly where it's going to go, but I'm quite excited to find out, and I would love to know what you think, good or bad. I'm always open to feedback. And do check out the Urban Sketchers website if you're interested in going to their symposium. Tickets go on sale on the 12th of November 2022. So if you're interested in that, don't forget to snap up your ticket as soon as you can. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you've found this of interest, and if you would like more urban sketchy inspiration like this, you can click on this video right here, and I will see you in the next one.